Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the World Class Stamp. In this episode, we'll be talking through the Premier League so far and reviewing current teams' performances. So, first up, we've got Manchester City, currently top of the table after 11 games played, 9 won, 2 lost. Steve, what do you think of Manchester City's performance so far this season?
Yeah, Man City, as expected, are doing what Man City do. They are top of the league. Very little said about them, I think, so far this season. I think a lot of focus has been on a few of the other teams in the table. So they've got some key injuries as well, as I'm sure we'll all touch on. And yeah, generally speaking, I think they're doing what they need to do. Slightly surprised they've lost 2 games already at this stage of the season. I don't expect them to have many more blips, to be honest with you, in the seasons, especially with players coming back from injuries, as we'll talk about. But yeah, I've been picking out one player. I've been extremely impressed with Doku, new signing there on the
Great
left-hand
signing.
side. Absolutely rapid pace, and he's also got technical ability to go with it as well. So I've been really impressed with him.
Matt, Manchester City, 27 points. Next up, Chelsea. How have you made their start to the season? What do you think of their performance so far?
Well, obviously, champions doing what champions do, top of the league. No De Bruyne, no Stones, no Diaz for most of the season so far. Still top of the tree. So they don't need to get stronger. Sometimes you can argue they start a bit slow. But this season, like you said, it's 27 points. Doku looks like he might have a world-class stamp all over him if he keeps going. So, yeah, well, could have a world-class season. He's been playing fantastic the last 3 fixtures. So, yeah, I think they're the ones to catch.
Yeah, it's particularly impressive considering they're top of the league and they've got all the injuries that they have. No John Stones, Kevin De Bruyne out for a long period of time. Their key playmaker, Haaland's picked up a knock, but he did play midweek, so it could be a tricky one for Manchester City. But what I think is also flown under the radar is their goal difference, plus 20 goal difference, uh, smashing in loads of goals. Yes, they have lost 2 games, but that seems to be only a short blip, and those was back-to-back losses, and they're also performing well in the Champions League. So performing well on all fronts, except for the Carling Cup, which I believe they got knocked out of that one. So yeah, they're doing really well, and obviously the injuries are not at this moment in time hurting them as much as you would think they would be. So really good stuff from Manchester City. Second in the league, we have Tottenham Hotspur, a surprise package and some good performances under the new manager Ange Postecoglou. 26 points, and they were leading the table for majority of the season so far, but they've just slipped into second place. Matt, what do you think of Tottenham Hotspur's performance so far this season?
Yeah, well, the manager, I'll just call him Ange. I won't call the second name out. I'll make a mess of it. But he's had, what a lease of life he's given Son this season. He's been back to his best. Richarlison is improved under him, you could say, in the first quarter of the season. That's gone ahead. Yeah, Romero turned into he was good at the back end of last season. I know he's had a red card against Chelsea, but he's been cracking in cracking form. So yeah, a bit of a surprise how well they've done so quickly, and well, maybe they'll challenge for the title.
It's quite possible. Steve, what are your thoughts on Tottenham Hotspur? Next up, Wolves on the weekend. Can you see them continuing this push throughout the season?
Yeah, I mean, Ange Postecoglou. I mean, he's seems to be loved by many different clubs, fans. The way he's handling the media, especially.
Yeah.
I've been really impressed with how he's practically rung the changes in Spurs. A lot of new faces he's brought in. Some squad players from last season that weren't getting games. Basuma, for one, has come in and done really well. And Son was quiet for Son last season, but this season he stepped it up, and I think they've shocked people. I think massively with Harry Kane moving on to Bayern Munich. I think Spurs would have been tipped as one of the big boys to struggle without him, but they've actually so far are bucking that feeling. So been really impressed with them playing good football, scoring goals. Wolves on the weekend, as you say. I do expect them to continue. Yeah, I think they'll I won't say drift away as the season goes on, but I wouldn't expect them to continue this for 38 games, but I'll be watching closely for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things he has done is strengthen the defense. Fullbacks areas, you've got Ndogi and you've also got Pedro Porro in the fullback areas. Um, Also bringing in Van de Ven, unfortunately got an injury in the last
Racing.
game against Chelsea, pulled a hamstring. Also, Vicario, the goalkeeper, making the tough decision of switching out Hugo Lloris, and he's also put Son in that lead role as striker, and he's really picked up the mantle from Harry Kane. It does kind of make you wonder, how would they be performing if they added Harry Kane into this team as well? If they still had him, obviously you don't know that question, but are they thriving more where they're not reliant on that one player, or have they become more of a team rather than relying on individual brilliance from Harry Kane? I suppose a question we won't be able to answer there, but definitely surprised in the upturn of form for Tottenham, and yeah, they've been performing well above what was expected for probably the majority of the Tottenham fan base as well. So they're doing really well this season. Okay, so moving on to third place now, we've got Liverpool. Won 7 games, drawn 3, lost 1. 24 points. They're only 3 points off top of the league. Next up, Brentford this weekend. Uh, Drew last time out against Luton Town. For me, I think Liverpool they don't seem to be firing on all cylinders. They've got a midfield which is new and gelling, and they are drawing a lot of games. So I don't see them challenging for the title, but I think they will finish in the top four this season. And Jurgen Klopp is probably taking another season to rebuild. Question marks over Salah. Will he eventually go to the Saudi League? I think probably end of the season they're gonna find it really difficult to turn down 150 million plus bid for him. So question marks over his future. But as for this season, see a top four finish for Liverpool, and also maybe a decent win in the cup. So the League Cup, they're pretty far into that now. So potentially a League Cup as well. Matt, what do you think about Liverpool this season? How do you rate their chances?
Well, I think they're creating enough chances every game. It's just they're not clinical enough. The front three. I think Nunez could do more with his finishing. Um, Salah's always chips in the goals. I just think they need to, yeah, work as a trio, especially with Diaz up front now as well. Um, yeah, I think they'll be there at the end of the season too. I think it'll be seen. It's going to be close all the way. I think Liverpool, like I said at the start of the season, will also challenge Man City for the title. I think they're okay all over the park. They don't concede many goals. It's just if they get it finishing together, they might hit the purple patch, put some pressure on.
Yeah, Allison's been in top form this season, and they look a bit more solid defensively. Steve, what do you think about Liverpool next up Brentford on the weekend, and how have you rated their performance so far this season?
Big question mark for me with Liverpool at the start of the season was the new midfield basically that they brought in. There's big question marks about how they would gel. New signings there. Most of the signings were in that position, weren't they? So I've been quite impressed actually with them. I do feel that aside from City, I think Liverpool probably at the minute the only team I can see that are gonna really challenge for that number one spot. As you say, Matt, Nunes can do more. I genuinely think he will do more. I think he's gonna click at some point in the season, and show people what he's made of basically, and score the goals. So yeah, I'm expecting a City Liverpool run into it to the end of the season.
Yep. Okay. Well, next up we've got Arsenal. Similar performance to Liverpool. They both on 24 points. Both won 7 games, drawn 3, lost 1, and both tied on 14 goal difference. Just looking at the two sides, I think it's only one goal separates them. So Liverpool scored one more goal and conceded one more. Arsenal one less and conceded one less as well. So very tight between the teams. Burnley on the weekend for Arsenal. How would you rate Arsenal this season, Steve?
Been, I didn't expect Arsenal to come out with the same performances as last season. I think last season was very much I wouldn't call it a one-off season, but certainly getting towards that kind of description in terms of that challenge for the title. I was as expected for me. I think by no means they've struggled, but they haven't quite reached those levels yet. Um, Champions League is a new thing for Arsenal as well this season. that's going to take slight priority. I say slight, very much a priority for Arteta. So I think there's a challenge for him, and you can see that I think in his team selection of how he goes out to these games, Premier League, Champions League. Yeah, not fluid. They're digging out the odd result. They've lost, a couple. Yeah, but as expected, I think for me.
Yeah, interesting your summarization of Arsenal there. Liverpool challenging for the title, Arsenal not nowhere near it, yet they're both on the same points. So yeah, interesting reading there. I think Arsenal are slightly undercooked. I think there's a question here around the goalkeeper position. Is Arteta trying to be a bit too cute, fixing the problem that didn't need fixing? I think the main issue with Arsenal was they don't have a 20 goal a season striker. Eddie Nketiah, yes, he'll chip in with a goal, and he did score really good hat trick. I think it was against Sheffield United. But is he going to be scoring hat tricks against the top six sides? Don't think so. I don't think he's that level. But he will chip against the lower sides. I just don't think, if you look at the top sides, Haaland, Salah for Liverpool, do they have that kind of player that can score 20 goals a season? Not sure. So yeah, I think that's where they'll come up short. Arsenal. But yeah, they've been doing well so far, and I could see them finishing in the top four. Matt, what do you think as you're rocking around the world with your camera there? Um,
Yeah, I know. I'm
how do you rate
tripod
Arsenal's
issue
chances this
as
season?
usual. Yeah, they're not ruthless enough as a side. I think they're still a bit naive in the big games. Um, Odegaard's not been quite as on fire as he was the back end of last season. Saka, yeah, no, he's played well. Nketiah doesn't do it every game, so yeah, I don't think they're gonna find it, as a easy challenge to Man City as they did last season because the other sides around them have improved, so they might drop points. So it's going to be a struggle, but I think they'll get into the top four.
Yeah,
I just open up a quick 1 minute sort of debate. Kai
sure.
Havertz. What's people's thoughts on Kai Havertz? I'm struggling to see why that purchase was made. To be honest with you, yeah,
Yeah, I think. Well,
he's struggling.
for me, Kai Havertz, his natural position is an attacking midfielder. He looks a bit lost when he's playing in the out and out striker role. I know he kind of tried to fill in that position for Chelsea when they didn't really have a proper out and out striker number 9. But for me, he plays the 10 position behind the striker. And with having Odegaard there, questions about same thing about maybe he's trying to be a bit too cute Arteta, where he's spending money strengthening, having 2 players for every position, when really I think the focus on his budget should have been a striker. It could have potentially go for one in January. Maybe that's the plan, but it's always hard to get a striker out of a club halfway through a season. Nobody really wants to let go of a informed goal scorer, and it'd cost a lot of money to get someone out of there. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what Arsenal do. Probably maybe a summer move for someone, maybe someone like Osimhen from Napoli. He may be looking to move on, but there'll be other suitors for him, I'm sure. But Matt, what are your thoughts on Kai Havertz?
I think he's lost a bit of confidence, especially in front of goal.
Time.
He's one of them players. I think sometimes categorize players as they're better in their early 20s than they are in their mid to late 20s. And he may have lost, could argue, maybe half a yard, a quarter of a yard of pace. But, in these big games against the elite level of football, that's going to cost you a chance, or not going to be able to create you a chance. I think he needs that extra bit of time on the ball, and maybe he's just not getting it for that reason. That's the only thing I put my finger on a technical aspect. So yeah, it just hasn't worked.
Yeah, I agree. What about you, Steve? Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure he'll have the odd decent game, score the odd goal. But playing for a club like Arsenal, wanting to challenge for the title, you got to be consistent, and he just isn't that at the minute. Hopefully, it'll turn around.
Yeah, still early days. Okay, so next up in fifth is Aston Villa, 22 points, 7 wins, 1 draw, 3 losses. Although they're in fifth place, for me, they seem to be a bit unpredictable. One time you think they're gonna absolutely run away with the game, and then you think there's certainties to win the next game, and then end up losing. But they are in fifth position, and no European commitments this year that I'm aware of. So yeah, they are performing well, and currently bit of a surprise package. Unai Emery has got them well drilled. Some great signings there, and they could be an outside chance for the top four should one of the teams in there at the moment slip up. Steve, what do you think of Aston Villa's chances this season?
Yeah, they were my tip to do well. Unai Emery, I like him as a manager. Ollie Watkins had a very good pre-season. Took a few games to get into it this season, but he seems to be banging form and hitting the goals in. So yeah, fifth is probably higher than I would place them as the season goes on and after 38 games is played. But for me, strong team, solid, play decent football. Douglas Luiz is looking like he's growing into a very good player. Obviously, City let him go, and he's definitely grown this season from last year. So good spine to that team. Yeah,
Yeah.
spine.
Ollie Watkins on fire. Could be a decent signing for Arsenal if they wanted to go down that road. Matt, Fulham on the weekend. How have you raised Aston Villa's chances this season?
Yeah, they'll probably get the win against Fulham. Fulham are not playing bad either, but they're just hammering the goals in for fun this season. Aston Villa, Watkins on form. Might have to edit this bit out because I don't know the midfielder. Bailly or Diaby is there's a midfielder there. He is
Diaby, yeah.
what's his name?
The winger,
Diaby.
Diaby.
Diaby. I got it. What's Diaby? So yeah, Diaby. I've edit the crap out before, right? But yeah, Diaby's
Nope.
having an absolute.
Not
I got it
Abu.
right, but just wasn't for
Womp.
sure. I'm doing my notes. Yeah, yeah. Diaby's chipping in with plenty of goals. Said Watkins is just scoring a hatful. They could be potential top four, but I think they'll just miss out.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Next up then is sixth place is Newcastle United. Creeped up the table a little bit after a rusty start, I would say. Not really doing very well in Champions League. Looks like they're going to exit it in the group stage phase, and then they can concentrate on the league. Good experience for them. But yeah, 20 points, 6-1, 2 draw and 3 losses. How do you see the Toonami doing this season, Steve?
Yeah, I think the Champions League has obviously caused them, I won't say a problem, but more games than they used to, definitely. And they will want to give a good account of themselves in the Champions League. So I can understand the selections that are happening in the Champions League with the teams they're putting out. Callum Wilson hasn't quite scored the goals that I think he was sort of banging in last season, although he's still picking up the goals. See a very controversial recent result
Bullgate.
as well. There's a few things going on in that game, shall we say? So no, but I think to be honest, Newcastle will be comfortably finishing in the top half of the table. I don't expect them to get in that top four again this year. I think they'll just miss out, but they'll get European football again.
Yeah, Callum Wilson with 7 goals this season. Not a bad
That's
return.
good.
10
Yeah.
games played. Yeah, he's currently joint fourth top goal scorer with Jared Bowen. Um, yeah, Newcastle, I think they may struggle to get into the top four this season. They're suffering with a lot of injuries. So injuries might play their part and they might be a bit overly stretched with the Champions League as well, the upturn in form from Liverpool and Tottenham. Struggle to see who's going to fall out of that top four out of those 4 sides, but could be a Liverpool, it could be an Arsenal. I think Manchester United and Manchester City and Tottenham are nailed on for the top 2, or at least 2 of the 4 spaces. Matt, what do you think of Newcastle's chances? Bournemouth on the weekend. How would you rate their performance so far this season?
Well, they started off with a few draws, which brought them down a bit further in the table. Been winning more recently, especially on the weekend with that bar controversy. However, I thought they'd done well in the Champions League. The first 2 games, they got a 0-0 away draw against AC Milan. They were under the cosh, but they held off for the draw, and obviously the famous win against PSG at home absolutely blew them away. If we're going to be honest, in that
Yeah,
game, Dortmund took them to school really with how to play European football under pressure and got a win at St James's Park in an entertaining game. And then in the return leg this week, they've done it over 2-0. So I think they've done pretty well. They could still qualify. I think they could beat Milan on the last game of the at St James's, last game of the group. So they could still advance in my eyes. In league, I think they're gonna. Yeah, I agree with you boys. They're gonna finish just outside the top four. They're a bit too stretched. I don't think the squad's big enough at the moment. But on the weekend, they should get the win. Eddie Howe will go back down to Bournemouth and get the 3 points. And
Yeah,
yeah, that's them.
it could be a different scenario come January if they make some of the right signings. I'm sure they'll have the checkbook out again. But yeah, at this moment in time, I see him finishing outside the top four. So we move on to seventh position, Brighton and Hove Albion. Again, up the top of the league, and also playing in the Europa League. And they're doing quite well in there as well. So I expect them to progress to the next round. Won 5, drawn 3, lost 3, 18 points. Um, Next up, Sheffield United on the weekend. They've hit a bit of a bad patch of form at the minute. Lost, drawn, lost, and then drawn, drawn. But you should hopefully see them return to winning ways on the weekend. So they have stuttered a little bit late, feeling that European stretch. Still think they'll get a top 10 finish and a decent run in Europe. Which is, if you say that to most Brighton supporters, especially only a couple of seasons ago they've already going down by like about 2 points. And now to be in Europe and consistently a top 10 team, I think that is more than most Brighton fans could probably dream of. Steve, how do you rate Brighton's chances this season? Are they going to win any silverware, do you think?
Oh wow. I think Brighton are one of those unpredictable teams. They'll pick up I wouldn't say a shock result against a big boy, but they'll beat a big boy, and then they'll draw against the likes of and they did against Everton. So yeah, I guess you could say Brighton are doing kind of what Brighton do. Really, they seem to be quite a nicely poised mid-table top half team in the last season or so. Steady Eddies. Yeah, I mean, what more can you say, really? I think Brighton are just picking up the results when they need to, and just ticking over quite nicely. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's answer to your question. Sorry about silverware. I'll probably regret this now, but it's a no from me.
Not from you. All right. Okay. No surprise silverware in the works. Matt, how have you rated Brighton and Hove Albion this season? Current form not the greatest, but currently sitting in seventh position.
Yeah, I think I predicted 10th for them this season, or maybe ninth. And they're around about that mark. They started off absolutely on fire the first 3 to 5 games, couldn't stop
Yeah,
scoring. And then the last 5, they've taken a hit. I would be over the moon with this squad if I was a Brighton fan. They got Matoma, Dunk, Ferguson's a exciting young striker. They got Fatty over. He's playing well, scoring
what you call me?
goals. Sorry, Steve. But yeah, I would be a happy season ticket holder if I was a Brighton fan, and I will predict the UEFA Cup for
Yep.
Brighton.
Okay.
Oh,
All
Just
right.
chipping in there. I'm feeling positive vibes from that club, so yeah, good luck
Yep.
to them.
Okay. Yeah.
better check
So
it out on the X account. Get it bookmarked.
yeah. Potential silverware then for Brighton. And contrastly or conversely, you have Manchester United in eighth place, on the same amount of points, 18 points. Not so happy season ticket holders there at Old Trafford. 6 wins, 5 defeats already in the season for Man United. Two in town on the weekend. Expect them to pick up a win there. It seems a bit like a poison chalice there at Manchester United. Not really sure what the answer is. Um, Maybe getting Alex Ferguson until the end of the season. That's probably the only way Manchester United are going to have an upturn in fortunes. -4 goal difference as well. It's it, no draws. They seem to they either win or they lose. There's no middle ground. Onana struggling at Manchester United. The defense, Johnny Evans, 35, and he's starting. Harry Maguire, somehow he's playing. The balance in the midfield's off, and too early to judge their new striker, but he hasn't really hit the ground running at all, struggling from injuries. And Rashford, it just seems a shadow of his former self. He's not really nowhere near that purple patch he was around January time last season. So yeah. But that said, they are eighth, and they are only 4 points off fifth place. So they could we'll string cut the results together. They could get up there challenging, and Champions League looks like all but done for them after a defeat again. So yeah, I don't see things changing for Manchester United. Maybe if they resign David De Gea, they might get some more stability at the back. Defensive signings, they really, really need to ship out players in January. Whether there'll be any buyers for them, that's another question. Yeah, and whether the manager will still be there as well. Maybe a little bit of faith is being lost in him by some of the players. The supporters are usually great. They'll back their manager through thick and thin. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on Manchester United. Matt, what do you feel about the Red Devils? How are they performing for you this season?
Well, a good few years back now, Jose Mourinho said, "This is my greatest ever achievement in football, getting Manchester United second in the Premier League with this squad." And how much has he been proven right? Because they haven't achieved that since. And every manager that's gone in has failed. The squad don't play for the club anymore, seems to me. Um, they just scrape over the line season by season. And I put, yeah, put it down to last weekend. Bruno Fernandes, I thought it was a bit of a goal keeping error. I think he could have kept it out. I think Bruno Fernandes may have saved Eric Ten Hag's skin because the pressure would have been definitely on this game against Luton coming up. And if he would have not got a punch out of that, I think he was gone, to be honest. But I think he got a couple more games left in him. They're just in a bad state.
Yeah,
It reminds me of, yeah, maybe say Arsenal about 7, 8 seasons ago, where there's no direction in the club, and Man United are at the exact same point at the moment. So can't see no higher than eighth than where they are.
okay. Steve, just to throw a bit of
Eighth or, yeah, eighth or even mid-table, further down, if anything.
Steve, what's gone wrong from last season? Finishing third, Champions League. They have strung a couple of wins together recently, though. 4 wins, sorry, 3 wins in 4 games. Potentially picking up another win on the weekend. Seems to be like papering over the cracks for me. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like I should do the sprinkle of positivity here. So you're right, Anton. Season ticket holders, they're not going to be impressed right now. They're going to be getting wet with that leaky roof still. And I think there's a lot of media frenzy around Man United, as there always is. And I think we've got to remember last season, they kind of had a similar start, didn't they? It was all kind of doom and gloom. And then all of a sudden, as you've mentioned, I think that Marcus Rashford purple patch with a few other goals from the likes of Casemiro kind of sort of dragged them through and it ended up being a good season with silverware. So, but it feels slightly different this time round for me. Yeah, I think you're right, Matt. I think there's something going on there between the players, the manager, the club. I mean, the club's been something that's gone on for a few years now. I think the hierarchy there's issues there, whatever they are, I don't know. But one positive though, I think Rasmus Højlund is looking like a good find, a very good player. Scoring goals in the Champions League. Can't seem to bag a goal in the Premier League, but I've no doubt that will come. Bruno Fernandes, for all his sort of occasional petulant whinging, still does score the goals, create the goals. A couple of injuries, haven't they? Varane doesn't seem to be able to string more than 2 or 3 games together, if that. Casemiro's obviously got injured, didn't he, on international duty? So I, I don't want to say it's going to carry on like this because they did drag it out and pull it out of the bag last season. Luton is a massive game on the weekend. I think Luton are going to be well up for this game. Yeah, if they don't pick up 3 points here, I don't think a sacking's on the cards, but they've got to turn it around quick. As you say, league form isn't that bad really. It's not consistent. It's more about performances, isn't it? And I think the all the other stuff going around the club is just
Yeah,
distracting the
Well, for
performance.
me, Brentford, how they won that game, we don't know. Fergie time's still there, Old Trafford. I know. So they've beat Brentford. That was like 1 in 100 turnarounds. Fulham, I think Fulham should have taken the lead against Man United twice in that game. They won 1-0. Fernandez got them out of jail. And you could argue Sheffield United, they only scraped past Sheffield United 2-1. And that could have gone either way. So, yeah, I think any more performances like they've been putting in, and yeah, they're in big trouble.
I
yeah,
think as you say, Anton, they're still eighth, and I think some United fans think to themselves, "How are we eighth with what's gone on?" So they still do tend to dig points out, don't they? And maybe they'll continue to do so. It only takes 8 to 10 games, purple patch to turn a season right on its head.
yeah. And hopefully some fresh signings for the door in January to build on the defense because it needs a total revamp, and hopefully Blazers will get the checkbook out. But yeah, it needs a refresh, that club definitely. And Luton will be buoyed after their point against Liverpool. And they'll be going to Old Trafford with no fear, and they'll try and get some points, which makes it dangerous opposition, as it's their cup final. So yeah, and Manchester United has struggled in recent seasons against promoted sides at home as well, which is very unusual. Okay, next up
If
in
I'm,
ninth, we've got Brentford.
sorry, I was about to say
Oh,
I
sorry,
found it quite funny that Steve mentioned that Man United get a lot of media attention, and we have definitely spent the most time on
talking about
Manchester
Manchester
United.
United.
So,
Yeah,
Hey, we're a media outlet.
that's it, right? New media,
exactly.
new wave. Yeah.
Uh,
Um, yeah, so the next up here we got Brentford. Played 11, obviously won 4, drawn 4, lost 3. They're another difficult ones. I dread picking Brentford up when we're doing the predictions on the weekends. That you predict them to win and they lose. You pick them to lose and they win. Um, yeah, they seem to zig when you want to zag. 3 back-to-back wins on the bounce here. They've got Liverpool on the weekends. Uh, they've they've started really well, started hot. Yeah, they could. It'll be a tricky game for Liverpool. And Brentford, currently performing in the top 10. Brentford have been in the lower reaches of English football for a long period of time, but a well-run club, and to be in the top 10 of the Premier League, that is an achievement in itself. Especially with the size of the ground. But they just pick up great signings. They got a nice tidy manager down there who attracts good players to the club. So yeah, they're doing very well, and I can see them staying up again this season, which has got to be their aim every season. But looks like a comfortable top 10 finish again. Matt, what are your thoughts on Brentford, and how do you think they'll perform this season?
yeah, well, they're doing it without their main talisman, Ivan Toney.
That's
They're
right.
chipping in with goals all over the pitch, play exciting football. Yeah, their style suits the Premier League, and Brentford fans, this is their, I've never known to be so high in a league or, ever. So this is their purple patch moment for a good couple of seasons, I think, still. Yeah, and on the weekends, like you said, they could surprise Liverpool and they could beat them 2-3 nil, and you'd be like, oh, well, there you go. Brentford a good side. We lost to them. They were on fire, and then next week they could lose the bottom of the table. So yeah, quite a funny side to follow. But yeah, they're playing really well.
Yep.
I
Uh,
predict, yeah, I predict a riot. No, I predict 11th. Pick 11th for Brentford.
11 for Brentford. Yeah, that'd be a good season, right? Steve, how about you? Do you think they'll finish higher than 11th? They're currently doing well in ninth place.
No, I don't think they'll finish higher than 11th, but they'll be there or thereabouts. They're just a stable club, stable manager, stable side. They've won 4, drew 4, lost 3. Pretty steady across the board there for all results possible. So I bet most clubs going to Brentford, like us talking about them, really struggle to probably set up against them. Because obviously they're unpredictable, but as you said, they can beat a big boy and also slip up against one of the basement boys. But I think they'll continue on as they are. They'll pick up points, they'll pick up wins, they'll pick up draws, and they'll lose a few. But I think they'll be probably smack bang mid-table by the end of the season. As you say, Tony coming back, they've managed without him so far. Not sure whether he'll stay at the club. There's lots of rumours flying around that he may move on. Arsenal, I think there's rumours linking him there, but of course that always happens in the lead up to January. So yeah, steady Eddie Brentford.
Yep. Okay, moving on to 10th position then. We've got Chelsea, 4 wins, 3 draws, 4 losses, 15 points. Doesn't seem to be much improvement from last season, even after all the money they've spent. Jackson with a hat trick against Tottenham, although it looks slightly better than it actually is after the double red card and 2 of his 3 goals coming in extra time. I was expecting a bigger improvement from Pochettino. Still feels like they're missing that striker uh, part of the jigsaw. Been really impressed with Palmer. He's really stepped up, and the one thing that kind of frustrates me about Chelsea is the fact that they're giving him the penalties. It shouldn't take a young lad coming in from Manchester City was he early 20s to be put under pressure, playing for a big club and being the main penalty taker. There's a lot more experienced players in that club that should be stepping up and taking the pressure off the young lad. But fair play to him, he's putting the goals away, and yeah, he's become a really important part of their team so far this season. Raheem Sterling, he's been playing very well. I've been really impressed with him. He looks a totally different player this season, and he's really Pochettino's really playing to his strengths. They've got a couple of midfielders in from Brighton and also Southampton, so still gelling, and that kind of defense looks a bit leaky. And Sanchez, the goalkeeper, which I think they picked up from Brighton. So yeah, still gelling. So potential for them to have a better second half of the season, and no doubt Todd Boehly's going to be splashing the cash again in January. Currently 10th. They definitely they're not punching their weights. They should be higher up in that table. But win on the weekend against Manchester City could really show their intentions, but it's going to be difficult. Steve, what do you think about Chelsea this season, and how do you rate their performance so far?
Yeah, I think the game on the weekend against City will be a decent marker to see how far they are away from getting up towards the top spot. Um, so far, from what I've seen, they're a long, long way away. But I think that's kind of by design. I think they're planning for the future, aren't they? They're in a I won't even call it a transition phase. Really, it's kind of a complete overhaul, restructure of the entire recruitment, contracts, the works. So Cole Palmer, as you say, I was surprised when he left Man City. Didn't see a lot of him at Man City. He was obviously a very bit part, struggled to get into that side for obvious reasons, but he seems to be, along with Sterling, kind of the almost a team being kind of built around those two players. I think. Do like the midfielder Enzo Fernandez. He looks a very good player. Yeah, very much for the future. I see them probably hovering around kind of where they are now. I think just that I mean Jackson scored a hat trick against Spurs, but as you said, it was against a team with two men sent off, two late goals, playing a ridiculously high line. I think they were pretty much in the opposition's half, that defensive line. So yeah, I think they'll be mid table again and just pick up the odd good win and probably get a very sloppy a loss along the way as well.
Okay, Matt, what do you think of Chelsea this season? Can you see them improving going into the second half of the season?
Yeah, I can. I can see them sort of gel a little bit better. They got a young squad there, as we've touched on. Yeah, Cole Palmer's done a great job. Gallagher in the centre of the pitch. They're finding their way. I think it's all a bit raw. I think they lack a bit of technique in the final third. That's where they're really struggling. I don't think they string it together well. Ball goes out of play a lot, and they just can't find. They're not as clinical. I think Jackson's a bit sloppy with the ball. I think he looks a bit disinterested sometimes when the game's not going his way or doesn't make the correct run. I think his hat trick against Tottenham, even when he took it on the keeper, looked a bit clumsy for the tap in. So I don't think he's quite Chelsea level from what I've seen of him. So yeah, but I think they will improve as a team. They will create more chances and hopefully start finishing. So I think they
Yeah.
will, and they'll climb up. Yeah, maybe I predicted a shock start for them and maybe finish fourth this season. But they haven't quite lived up to that, so I'm gonna have to put them down into seventh.
Oh, you can't change it.
Yeah.
Mm,
Well, the
I just
revised
did.
position is he just changed. Um, yeah, and just to
Yeah,
add to that, you
yeah.
mentioned Gallagher. I don't rate him, to be honest with you. I think if he was any other nationality other than English, I think he'd be out the squad. So yeah, I think he's getting a bit of the rub of the green. Like I mean, he didn't really impress me at Crystal Palace, really. He just seems like a mid-table Premier League footballer. I don't feel like he was like a standout performer at all. Yeah, so I'm surprised he's getting as much opportunity as he is. I guess it's just not the players there to switch him out with. So yeah, I think he's gets a bit too much opportunity for me. I think he's not someone Chelsea should keep in their side. I think they should sell him, but that's just my personal opinion. Um, yeah, so speaking of Crystal Palace, next up in the table is 11th place Crystal Palace. Exact same kind of results as Chelsea, 4 wins, 3 draws, 4 losses, 15 points. Next up, Everton for them. Roy Hodgson doing a Hodgson. He's keeping it steady, picking up the wins against the bottom sides, getting pumped by the top sides, and probably going to end up middle of the road. Matt, what are your thoughts on Crystal Palace and Roy Hodgson?
Yeah, I can't believe Roy's still managing, to be honest. It's good that he's doing such a good job as well. He's proving everyone wrong. Yeah, he just changed up the result. He loves the club. He's got some good youngsters there. There's a he's chipped in with a few goals. Yeah, they got sort of like a bit like a Chelsea, all pace, maybe not much direction, but they do seem to pick up yeah, a lot of wins. So yeah, I think they'll get another win this weekend. Big game against Everton. And I think it'll be 1-0.
Yep. Okay. Steve, what are your thoughts on Palace? You're a big fan of EC. How's how's your predictions on their season? Do you think they're about where they deserve to be?
Yeah, they started well, didn't they? Eze in particular, Elise picking up the assists and the goals. Edouard had a decent start first few games. A bit quieter these days, but a lot of that I think was down to the injuries too. Eze and Elise, who I think have come back and maybe got slight injury again in the last run out, I believe. They just need those two players, especially I think back. They're creative players. And I think they'll be fine. I think Edouard will score enough goals to probably break the double figure mark. Defense, pretty stable defense. I like Anderson, Joachim Anderson, very good defender. Just a very stable squad and very stable 11 that usually make it out onto the pitch. So I expect them to again hover around there or thereabouts where they are right now. Big game against Everton. I'd expect them to beat Everton. So yeah, comfortable mid-table team.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like I said, they'll finish mid-table. Obviously, transition from Wilfried Zaha moving on to the Turkish league and losing out their talisman. And just a shout out to the goalkeeper Sam Johnson. I think that's been a problem position for Crystal Palace for a long time. It never really had, I don't feel like a decent Premier League option goalkeeper. Sam Johnson, 11 appearances, 5 clean sheets. 28 saves this season. Conceded 13 goals, but in a Crystal Palace side, that's not bad. And I think he's doing really well. So I think he's been called up for England a couple of times. So yeah,
Yeah.
great signing for Sam Johnston. Okay, moving on then. Next up in the table, we have the Hammers, West Ham United. 3 losses on the bounce in the Premier League. They are currently still in Europe, and they're doing decently in the European competitions. 14 points, 4 wins, 2 draws, 5 losses. And Jared Bowen he's banging in the goals. But still seems like David Moyes can't get a break from the West Ham fans. I don't think they want him there. Even though he's brought them, relative success and a first trophy in how many years. Yeah, I don't think he's their cup of tea. But 12th in the league and another cup run. If they can pick up some more silverware this year, yeah, I think that'll be a decent position. But I don't see them straying into the relegation battle or troubling the top 10 too much. Matt, what are your thoughts on the Hammers this season?
Yeah, Jared Bowen scored a few crackers, hasn't he, this season? They started off really well. I think we done a pre-season special with guest from West Ham, Tom, and said, why can't you win the league? It's such a big club, really, in retrospect to the other parts of the country. And it looked like they were going to for the first 5 games, innit? They were flying up the table. And then ever since, they just can't hold on to the lead. They just seem to throw it away. And yeah, they're looking over their shoulder rather than looking up again. So I think Moyes is doing a good job, but I can see where the West Ham fans are getting frustrated. Yeah, they could have another loss on this weekend. They could lose this weekend again, and you'd say, you know, another flat performance. So yeah, I think saying I think they'll be okay. I think I'll put them around 10th, but yeah, I'll say 12th.
Yeah.
I think they'll finish about around mid-table.
Steve, what are your thoughts? They won again tonight in Europe. Currently
Yeah.
top of their Europa League table with 9 points. I think the West Ham fans would love another European run. Definitely see them qualifying from the group stage. What are your thoughts on the Hammers?
Yeah, as you mentioned, there's sort of noise around Moyes. Moyes noise.
Nice nose
So
from the boys.
Yeah.
yeah, there's something about him that they can't kind of bury. I don't think, because he's been manager of West Ham. They'll go on a great run of results, win a trophy, but a couple of bad results, then they kind of flip, and that all comes to the surface again. So I think it's slightly, but it's not West, it's their club. I think it's slightly harsh on David Moyes. I think he's proven, given a long stint at a club, he can deliver. I think about all those that decade at Everton. Quite similar clubs, really, when you look at them. I feel he is the right man for West Ham right now to just try and chip away at some silverware over the next few years and just keep that stable league position in the Premier League. They're coming off the back of a 3-2 loss against Brentford. Forest are coming off the back of a win against Villa. That'll be a tough game. It would not surprise me if Forest do turn them over. I just hope the Moyes noise doesn't get that silly that he ends up losing his job, because I think he is the right man as a neutral for that team. I think, just the last point, I think their recent dip in form has coincided with Paqueta's performances for West Ham. I think they've dipped, and I think the team's performances have therefore dipped as well. Although Bowen is still heavily reliant upon to score the goals. It's always been their problem, West Ham, as a striker, as we said in that episode with Tom. They've never had a striker for a long period of time who consistently scored good amount of goals in the Premier League. And I wouldn't even say Antonio was that player, even though he is all-time Premier League goal scorer.
Yeah, I don't think going from what the West Ham fans are saying, really know what they're going to get with Antonio. I think on the weekend, they blew a lead, doesn't they? Wasn't they winning
They were
2
2-1 up.
0 or and then they lost
Yeah.
3-2. Antonio took the ball off the feet of another striker. Could have had a tap in at the back post and just fluffed his lines, missed an open goal. Yeah, Moyes noise will continue, and out the pram with the toys if there's um, another defeat on the weekend. So yeah, it'd be an interesting game for sure. At home for West Ham, especially after the European exploits, it's always hard to get up for another game so quickly on the weekend. So next up, we have got their opponents: Nottingham Forest, 13th, 3 wins, 4 draws, 4 defeats, 13 points. Picking up quite a lot of draws, and obviously picked up a valuable win last time out. I think Nottingham Forest to be all right. Steve Cooper, he's not going to win any beauty pageants, but he's managing to keep Nottingham Forest in the league, and that's all really you can ask for Nottingham Forest. They've been missing from the Premier League for a long time, and their home form is probably going to see them through, especially with the quality of the bottom 4 teams, which we'll get to, being very poor this season. So poor that they're making Everton look good. So, Matt, what do you feel about Nottingham Forest?
Well, I predicted them to finish. I'll say be polite in the bottom three, but I actually predicted them to finish bottom this season. But they proved me wrong. They've been playing some good football. I tell you, Chris Wood up front has made a massive difference. I think he's got a few vital goals. I think he's out injured now for the weekend, but he's a big player. And yeah, they've got a good system there from what I've seen. And I think they'll do all right. Like I said, yeah, the manager's is pulling it out with a big squad. But I wouldn't say they got quality all over the park, but I think it's well drilled and they're churning up some wins. And a fantastic win against Aston Villa last weekend. So yeah, I think they'll be fine. I think they'll be maybe 14th, 15th.
Yep. Steve, what are your thoughts on Nottingham Forest and Steve Cooper's men?
Yeah, last season their recruitment was like an episode of Dale Winton's supermarket sweep, wasn't it? I mean, they were picking up any player they were walking past, by the looks of it. But I think they've seemed to have overcome that kind of approach now, and a very much more settled team in certain positions. I think there's still a bit of flexibility in some positions at Forest, but yeah, Wood got some key goals, didn't he? Womye looks a decent front man, talisman, target man for them as well. Kind of that new, I would say new, but going back to that sort of strap-in striker that some clubs in the Premier League seem to be reverting back to. Think of Haaland, Højlund, the other types, Nunes as well. I think that striker seems to be being reincarnated in the Premier League. So Yeah, I think they are probably performing as expected for me. I can't remember exactly where I put them down, but it would have been mid bottom half of the table and below. So as expected, and I I think West Ham will beat them on the weekend though.
Yep. It'll be a difficult game. Yeah, but it'll be a very interesting one, especially for David Moyes, because if he loses another game, 4 losses on the bounce, despite his European exploits, I think there'll be unrest at home. Especially it's never nice losing on the way into an international break. Okay, so next up, 14th position, we've got Wolverhampton Wanderers. 3 wins, 3 draws, 5 defeats. Gary O'Neill. He's kind of working wonders there, really. Sounds bizarre considering they're 14th, but considering the financial constraints or the players that they've lost, and they've got a bit of a cobbled together side, um, they're not really, especially the start of the season before he came in, he didn't really have much chance to build the squad he wanted to. But Hwang Yi-chan, he's getting the goals, 6 goals, 2 assists in 11 games. That's a very decent return for striker. So I think they'll have enough goals to stay in the division, and I imagine them staying around this place, and they will be fighting off relegation for the majority of the season, in my opinion. So next up, Tottenham on the weekend. They'll be desperate to bounce back after that disappointing loss against Chelsea. Was in control for large periods up until the sending offs. So yeah, I imagine Wolves will probably pick up a defeat on the weekend, but overall on the season they'll have enough to stave off relegation. Matt, what do you think of Wolves this season?
Yeah, well, he Chan, he's the man because all the goals come from him, created by or scored. I think he is a real key player for that side. They haven't got much. They started off dreadful. I think they were rock bottom for the first 5 games. They somehow turned out the results, and I think they'll survive relegation. They're one of those sides that always seem to do it, a bit like an Everton. So I think they'll stay up because they play as we like to say like Brighton play. They're playing the right type of football for the league, like a Brentford. It works against the bigger sides, and maybe that's where it becomes a bit of a scrap against the bottom boys. So I think they'll do well. And like the type of football they play against Tottenham on the weekend, you wouldn't be surprised if they picked up a draw. Playing similar styles, cancel each other out. So I think they'll just about be safe. Yeah, and they might pick up a point on the weekend.
Okay, Steve, what are your thoughts on Wolves? Where they're going to finish this season?
Yeah, as you said, Matt, they started terribly in the first couple of predictions. They very much Timberwolves, weren't they? They were falling over their fixtures. They've Gary O'Neill seems to have settled into that managerial position there. I think that's a great appointment. He kept Bournemouth up last season. Surprised they didn't keep hold of him. Wolves have snapped him up, and they've lost some key players. You've said they've got a couple of players who've got a point to prove. I think they've come from big clubs. There's some points to prove there for a couple of the players. Pedro Neto is looking like he's red hot. Unfortunately, he pulled up injured recently, didn't he? With I think a hamstring injury there. Although I haven't asked the Wolves physio exactly what was wrong, but yeah, I think Wolves
Get
will
him on Twitter, Steve.
he's on the show in the coming weeks. So yeah, I think they'll be fine. Wolves just need to score goals, and as you said, He Chan is doing that. So they'll be in a battle, but I think they'll be okay.
Yep, He-Chan, Masters of the Universe. Yeah, they'll be doing pretty well to master the Premier League this season. Next up, then in 15th place, we got Fulham. Pretty disappointed in Fulham's performance this season. I thought they'd be comfortable top 10 this season, but similar performance to Wolves. 3 wins, 3 draws, 5 losses, 12 points. Aston Villa on the weekend, tough outing for them. I think they'll struggle to pick up the points, but you never know. Aston Villa can sometimes you think, yep, they're nailed on, and then they end up losing. So yeah, Fulham, I expect them to stay in the league purely because there's just sides worse than them, rather than them having outclassing a lot of teams. I think they'll just kind of limp over the line. Losing Mitrovic was key loss for them. He's gone to the Saudi Arabian League, so yeah, I don't think they really replaced his goals. And it's going to be difficult. Long season, only 9 goals scored this season. and 17 conceded. So yeah, it could be a long one for them, but I think they will stay in the league. Matt, what do you think about Fulham this season?
Yeah, well, from what I've seen of them, they've played some good football. They've had some narrow defeats, like I said last weekend against Manchester United. I thought they should have won that game, or at least got a draw. Lost it towards it. Well, literally the 90th minute. I think, yeah, they're going to be in a struggle. I thought they'd finish a bit higher, but after seeing Mitrovic go, they have struggled to replace him. So yeah, I think they'll just be okay. There's a worse sides around them.
Steve, what are your thoughts on Fulham?
Yeah, struggling to score goals, which is never a good thing in the Premier League, especially when you're conceding a few as well at the other end. Um, there was a lot of disruption, I suppose, with Palhinha. Is he go in? Is he stay in? I thought he was really good last season for them. He's now back playing for Fulham. He didn't go anywhere. Hopefully for them, he will rekindle that form of last season. But still, they need somebody up top to put the goals in. They got Willian on the wing there, who despite his age, still playing like a 28, 29-year-old, can provide assists and bang the odd goal in. But yeah, my only worry is the goal difference. As you said, conceding a lot and not scoring either. So I go with what you say, Anton. I think there are worse teams than them, and there will be at the end of the season as well. So they'll be okay.
Yeah, maybe Tony Khan can get the checkbook out and sign some players instead of some wrestlers. So maybe they'll be able to stay in the division. But next up, we've got Everton. 3 wins, 2 draws, 6 losses, 11 points. Picked up some pointers late, and they got Crystal Palace on the weekend. Could They should be fine to stay in the league, although I did predict them to go down this season. I thought their luck would run out, but they've just been saved by worse teams than them in the league. But there is that kind of points deduction that could be waiting in the wings. I think they've just got enough quality to stay in the division, and also a manager that is used to the relegation slog. So yeah, Everton to I'm going to reverse my decision. Everton to stay in the league just, but
No way.
yeah,
Whoa,
I
second
thought
time.
I thought it was going to be pretty close there, but I think they're probably just gonna scrape by again. Steve, what do you think of Everton? Do you think Toffee's got enough to stick around?
So, so for me, Everton in recent seasons, it's always been on can they get ECL fit and playing an entire season? Dominic Calvert-Lewin, for those who hate abbreviations, and he is playing and he is scoring the odd goal. And I think as long as he's doing that with Sean Dyche at the helm, pretty solid defense. I think Dyche is a very I won't say defensive manager, but he knows how to put a decent, solid back line together and spine to a team. So I think Everton will do better than they did last season. Not much better, but I think they'll be fine. They'll probably be in and out of a bit of a relegation worry. There's obviously that issue hanging over their heads, which they'll want to get resolved. They won't want distractions like that. And yeah, as long as DCL keeps putting the goals in, gets up to 12 plus, they'll be fine.
Yeah, hopefully DCL don't pull an ACL. Matt, what are your thoughts for Everton?
Yeah, they got a good centre midfield. The Corey as well. I think he'll be, chipping in with the goals. I think they got enough. Evergreen Everton. He'll be staying in the league. To Anton's nightmares, I think. But yeah, they're staying up. Yeah, I think Pickford can put in a good performance. He'll get him a few points. So I think they'll be fine.
He's a top keeper, to be fair, Pickford. He is.
uh, yeah, maybe.
Tumbleweed?
I don't know. I think he's a bit. I don't know. Pickford for me, he's decent goalkeeper. I don't even think he's England's best goalkeeper. He kind of. I don't know. He's kind of. Don't get me wrong. He'll pull off some amazing saves, but I think he kind of fluffs some of the easier ones as well. There was a clanger in him. Um, and I think there's a reason why he's not playing for top six sides. If you look at some of the clubs like Manchester United, Chelsea, although they're not currently in the top six, traditionally they are, and even Tottenham Hotspur before they replaced Hugo Lloris. No one's come in for Pickford, and I think that tells its own story. Really, he's not a top six goalkeeper, and yeah, he kind of I think he kind of thinks he's a bit better than he actually is as well. So like I don't think he's probably at the right club. You know, maybe he could play for a West Ham one day. If he gets a transfer. yeah, but I can't see him playing for any of the big boys in his career. Um, yeah,
You'd
so
rather Olivier Giroud and go, I guess.
Olivier Giroud. You know what? I think the Crystal Palace goalkeeper is better than him at the minute. Sam Johnson, I think it is. He's a much more reliable goalkeeper, and I think he should be starting for England ahead of Pickford. You've also got Ramsdale as well. I think he's better than Pickford. So,
Just been a bit picky, Ant, I think.
Pickford
well,
is not being
Pickford
picked by anyone.
Pickford wouldn't make my England pick. So yeah. Um,
The only Pickford you're picking is the removal service.
yeah, you can pick off. But yeah, there we are. Um, not for me. But there we go. Next up, 17th place Luton Town. I predicted them to um, do a derby and get less points than them. Um, they've made some smart signings. You know, they've brought in Ross Barkley, which is a decent signing. They also brought in the winger Andros Townsend, I think it is. No win in 5 though, 2 draws. Picked up a handy draw against Liverpool. Um, you know, I think if they're going to pick up points, it's going to be at home at Kenilworth Road, and Manchester United on the weekend. So that could go either way. I think Man United to get the win there, 2-0. But overall, I think Luton, they're in danger of going straight back down. I think the only thing that could potentially save them is it depends how bad Bournemouth end up being. We never know. You could get a SOS, save our soul to Sam Allardyce, and I can see him going into Bournemouth. I think that'd be a proper Sam Allardyce club coming up. So watch this space on that. I'm calling it now. Sam Allardyce to Bournemouth. Yeah, their manager at the minute. I know we'll touch on Bournemouth next, so I won't go too much into detail on that. So talking about Luton, I do like the Luton Town manager. I think he's done a really good job to get him promoted, and it will be tough if he does get sacked because you know they're battling. They have no budget. You know, they got promoted too early, and they'll struggle. But if he manages to keep them up, he'll be manager of the year, in my opinion. He manages to save Luton from the drop. But yeah, what are your thoughts, Matt, on Luton Town? Have you been impressed with their start so far?
Well, they picked up, I think, 4 points. So that's impressive in the
6
first quarter of
points.
the season for me.
Uh,
6?
yeah, they're on 6
Yeah.
points, I think they are.
There we go. So even more impressive. Didn't think they'd get, I
One
thought they're going
win,
to be
3
bottom or
draws.
bottom but one. Yeah, they're punching above their weight, as you said. So they stay up, be a little mini miracle. But I think they'll go down. The season's just too long.
Yeah. Steve, what are your thoughts on Luton Town?
Yeah, speaking of punching above their weights, I think they could do with a little pep talk from a couple of local heroes. The one of the Tate brothers, Andrew or Kristen, to get in that dressing room and give them some motivational talk. But
What's he gonna say? What colour's your Bugatti?
I
That'd be his
think
motivational talk, right?
it works for most. But I think Luton, I think, have started to feel a bit more comfortable in the Premier League. Like as you say, that draw against Liverpool. Um, they'll settle in at some point into the league. I'm not saying they'll do really well or even avoid a relegation battle or even relegation, but I think at some point they'll find their feet. A couple of good signings: Townsend, Barkley, Nakamba as well from Aston Villa. Although he didn't play a lot for Villa, admittedly, but still a bit of experience. Um, yeah, they're gonna. I think as a club, players, the manager, they'll accept they're going to be in a dogfight come the end of the season. So I would imagine it's kind of a bring it on really from a Luton fan perspective and see what they can do.
Yeah. Only 7 goals scored this season. Sorry, 10 goals scored this season. Losses. So 10 goals scored. It's pretty low. 21 conceded. Matt, what are your thoughts on Luton? Can they do it?
I've already done Luton.
He's already done
I've
Luton.
just done Luton.
Moving on
Yeah,
then.
I've done Luton.
Bournemouth then next up. 18th in the table. Same record as Luton. 1 win, 3 draws, 7 losses. Their only win coming against Burnley, which is probably the only them and Sheffield United only 2 sides worse than Bournemouth in the table. Bizarrely, they got rid of Gary O'Neill. I don't think they'd be struggling where they are now. That Andoni Iraola, he hasn't really done it for them. I think, yeah, Bournemouth, unless they get a new manager in, because I don't think this manager knows the league, they're going to struggle. And they could even end up going through the trapdoor again. Yeah. So, yeah, Bournemouth, they will struggle, but I think they'll just finish. I think they'll switch places by Luton by the end of the season. I think they'll finish just outside the relegation places. They'll finish 17th. Matt, what about Bournemouth then? Since I asked you about Luton twice.
Yeah, Solanke, I think he's a good finisher. They were a good striker there. Maybe get him out of trouble. It's going to be a scrap to the very end of the season. Um, yeah, they got a good fan base there. They punch above their weight. I think they're a small club. You know, been in the Premier League last couple of seasons, on and off. So yeah, a good run with Eddie Howe those previous seasons. But I think this season, yeah, it's going to be to the wire. I think it'll be between them and one of the bottom three. Or Luton Town, the bottom four is there, I think. But which order the season will tell us. So yeah, apart from the one good player, yeah, they're going to struggle.
Okay, Bournemouth for you, Steve. Are the cherries going to get sunk?
Yeah, they are conceding, aren't they? They've been thumped a few
27
times.
goals conceded, only 9 scored, minus 18
Yeah,
goal difference for them.
yeah. 6-1 City, 4-0 Arsenal. Everton put 3 on them as well. So that's the problem for me. It's conceding the goals. Doesn't matter. Well, it does matter how many you score up front, but when you're Bournemouth and you don't have a striker that's scoring 15, 20 goals consistently at this level, then you can't concede that many and expect to pick too many points up. So they gotta sort that out. Agree with your points on the manager, Anton. I'm not sure why Gary O'Neill was shipped on. Yeah, he's not a big name. Perhaps they thought this person they brought in would do better, but you need experience in the Premier League, especially for a relegation battle. I can't remember the last manager, correct me if I'm wrong here, who hadn't experienced the Premier League before and managed to survive a relegation dogfight. You just need somebody who knows the league, knows the game in England. So
Yeah,
I think they'll
especially for
struggle.
the lower clubs, right?
Yeah,
You can get away with it if you bring in a Pep or a Klopp, but if you're bringing in an unknown manager from Spain, maybe don't know the language, don't know the culture, especially for a small team like Bournemouth, it's a massive gamble.
yeah.
Uh,
So yeah, relegation dogfight. Not sure yet if they will go down. It's between them and Burnley for me. So it'd be interesting. I think the fact company's got that Premier League experience might just go in his favour.
Yeah. Well, Burnley out up next, though. Dreadful. 1 win, 1 draw, 9 losses, only 8 goals scored, which is the lowest in the Premier League. Lower than Luton, lower than Bournemouth and Sheffield United. 27 goals conceded, minus 19 goal difference. Yeah, Burnley have really, really disappointed me this season. They absolutely walked the championship last year, playing an excellent brand of football. I did question them spending £20 million on a Manchester City reserve goalkeeper. That seems really bizarre to me, but I assumed that he was a bit in the know there. But I always feel that with goalkeepers, they don't really come into their prime until they're at least 27, something like that, and they can go right on up until 40. These days, with the strength and conditioning and nutrition and all the sports science that's in the game. So to bring in such a young, inexperienced goalkeeper to come up against all these top strikers and defenders was really surprising to me, especially with some of the free agents that were out there. Yeah, I don't see Burnley surviving this. I wouldn't be surprised if Company did part company with Burnley. Um, can't see can't see him keeping them up, and 4 points is absolutely dreadful. And you know, it's only through luck that Sheffield United are in such a poor position as well. That they've got someone below them in the table. But yeah, so Burnley very disappointing this season, and I think they'll go down. Matt, what are your thoughts on Burnley?
Yeah, huge disappointment. I thought they'd do much better. They flew the championship last season. Thought they would bring that form of the Premier League and beat mid-table sides, lower sides. But something's going on in that club. It just hasn't clicked. There's noise behind the scenes. Um, yeah, they just haven't started well. They need the international break to come and hopefully reset their season, because the next game they got, they're going to get absolutely battered on the weekend against Arsenal, who were on form in the league. Apart from that blip against Newcastle, could argue they could have won that game as well. So I think Arsenal are going to absolutely pummel them on the weekend. and they just need to get reset and go again. But like you said, the way they've started, I think they're going down. And disappointed because them and Sheffield United at the rate they're going, I think they might even struggle to get past the infamous 11 points of Derby County, which was a terrible side. So I don't think they're that bad, but yeah, it's not looking great.
Cool. Steve, what are your thoughts on Burnley? Can they turn this around?
It's going to be difficult, isn't it, for them with the start they've made. They played. I don't feel like Burnley have played many home games, to be honest with you. They've had a couple of away games back to back. Unfortunately, one of them was a loss against Bournemouth, 2-1, which the games they can't be losing if they want to survive in the Premier League. Everton beat them in the Carabao Cup again. I mean that's Carabao, but they're the sorts of teams they need to be competing against. So they're going to struggle. Chelsea put 4 on them, and at that time, Chelsea were nowhere near purring, and probably in second gear at the time, really. So yeah, it's going to be a very tricky one for Burnley. They're going to have to they've got a couple of players there with previous Premier League experience. You'd hope they might grab the team by the scruff of the neck and drag them through, but again, it's conceding goals, it's scoring goals. If neither are working, then you're up against it.
Yeah, the only win coming against Luton Town all season. So yeah, one win in the last 5 games. Arsenal on the weekend, like you said, Matt, it's going to be extremely difficult for Burnley, and you don't see them picking any points up anytime soon. And finally, we come to our last team propping up the foot of the table, Sheffield United. One win, which came against Wolves, I think it was, with a dubious 99th minute penalty. Looked a bit of a dive to me as well. But I'm sure the Sheffield United fans won't care a bit. Norwood stepped up, started home, picked up their first win of the season. Again, another side struggling to score goals. 9 goals scored, 30 conceded. But you never know. They got Brighton on the weekends. If they can pinch a win there, they could be out of the bottom 3 going into the international break. Considering that Burnley have Arsenal, Bournemouth have Newcastle, and Luton have Manchester United, and then it puts a whole different perspective on it. They're currently struggling with their financial position. Some of the didn't really make any decent signings in the summer, so definitely feel sorry for the Sheffield United fans because great fan base. But the club is just it's got its opportunity in the big time, and you do worry for them if they didn't get promoted. Under the current ownership, they could have been looking at administration. So I don't think everything's right. I think they need buyers, fresh blood, to someone who can actually afford to pay the players properly and then get some decent signers in. But yeah, I think it's there's deeper issues for Sheffield United other than this current. They got a decent manager there. That might sound weird, but he performed an absolute miracle getting them promoted. So yeah, I think tough times for Sheffield United fans, and probably as soon as this season is over, the better for them, and they can maybe hopefully be sold and rebuild. But yeah, worrying times just for the whole structure of the club. Matt, what are your thoughts on Sheffield United this season?
Yeah, well, they struggled to get over the line in the championship last season. It looked like for a long time they were going to get pegged back and actually miss out on the automatic. So they just carried that form really into the start of this Premier League campaign. They are struggling. No real standout players. They put in some gritty performances. Now they lost to Manchester United. Gritty performance again against Wolves last week, and they actually got a dubious penalty, but 3 points is 3 points. Yeah, I think some of these sides when they come up, I'll mention it again. They don't want to be labelled with the worst Premier League side ever. So a target for them has got to be 11 points, and if anything above the relegation zone is obviously an absolute bonus. But yeah, I just can't see from the way they've started as well. I think they're going down.
Yep. Okay. Steve, what are your thoughts on the Blades?
Yeah, they're certainly not Blade running at the moment, are they? I feel like they've played quite a few tough teams so far this season. Have they played anyone around them yet? I want to, the last fixtures have been, yeah, Wolves. I wouldn't say are down in the same sort of bracket as them really. Arsenal, United, Fulham, West Ham, Newcastle. There's some tough games there for Sheffield United. So I'd be interested to know if they have matched up against anyone directly around them. Your Burnleys, your Lutons,
Well,
your
they drew
Bournemouth.
against Everton. They lost to Nottingham Forest, Palace. They got absolutely thrashed by Newcastle 8-0. Fulham, they got beat by Fulham. So, yeah,
Yeah,
I suppose you could say they haven't played Burnley, they haven't played Luton, they haven't played Bournemouth.
Bournemouth.
So,
Yeah,
potential, they all seem to be around the same level this season. So, potential to pick up points from them.
Yeah,
They will be the 6 pointers. Um,
yeah.
yeah.
and an excellent
So I
win
Just
think
a little
against Wolves.
round robin between those four sides, I think, to who see who's going down.
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely
So
seems to be three from them four teams. I think Bournemouth has got the most quality out of them all, but just not the right manager to execute that quality. So they persist with that manager. I can see him going down, but they do get someone in and maybe some sign-ins in January. They could potentially scrap their way out of it. But yeah, so yeah, as you were saying on Sheffield United, are they
yeah.
going to be blunt for the rest of the season? No cutting edge, the blades.
Well, I think the big test will be those teams around them. We've seen Burnley slip up already against the team around them, and Luton as well. So I think Sheffield United could still surprise a few and pick up some results there. But it's all on those fixtures really. I can't see them getting many other points from teams above. They'll obviously pick up the odd win and draw here and there, but it's as always with these clubs down there, they have to pick up those 6 pointers.
Yeah, and goals seem to be a premium. Well, that's our review for the Premier League season so far. These are our opinions. Let us know your opinions in the comments section below. If you liked the video, please consider dropping a like, and to help support the channel, consider subscribing, and you'll be notified for any new videos that we drop. And that's it for this time, guys. Have a world-class weekend, and we'll catch you all next time.